Hey, amazing parents, and welcome back to my channel. I want to start by saying that rules in the home is not enough. And I will dig in, I will dive into what I mean by rules on its own is not enough. It's not enough to modify or transform behavior in the home. Yes, rules are needed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that rules are not needed. Our children need structure, our children need guidance, our children need boundaries. So rules are important. But the mistake that many parents make is that we rely only on rules. And I want to share something with you. When my children were much younger, I realized this point that these rules are going to expire. These rules are not sustainable till they become adults. But what we can bring into the picture as early as now are values, because values don't expire. Whatever values we start to talk about in the home now and implement in the home now, that is likely to follow them into adulthood more than the rules. Because curfews are going to change, bedtimes are going to change, time to be on phone, all those things are going to change. But values that you start to talk about and implement in the homes, that will not change. Rather, they would actually build more on that as they grow. So I decided to talk more about values in my home than rules. And I will share with you how the values covered the rules. In each value, and this is me, and I must let me be honest with you. When I started talking about values in our homes, I didn't think that the values had any connection to to things that we expected them to do in the home, and these kind of things. I didn't think of it in that manner. It's reflecting back that I can see the connection. But at that time, I just believed in the values. I just believed that having values conversation was easier for me. I'll give you an example. One of the values we had was about teamwork. Yeah, teamwork. So that teamwork helped when it was time to implement doing chores. And I'm not saying that when someone's turn was to do dishes, someone's turn was to clean the counter, someone's turn was to do the floor and all that. I'm not saying that it all went perfectly and everybody did what they needed to do, but I think the idea that our family is a family of teamwork, I think that helps in that matter. So yes, even if everybody says, "Oh, but it was my turn yesterday," "Oh no, it wasn't my turn," I said, "Well, we're a team. We've got to do this stuff. Everyone's got a responsibility in this house." So values made the conversations easier. Values simplified. I'm just now just looking back. Values simplified parenting for me because it was an easier conversation to have. And it was a more matured conversation to have. We talked a lot about, there was teamwork. We talked a lot about hard work. Again, when I reflect back, I think, wow, every time we had this values kind of catch up and meeting that we had, every time hard work came into the picture. Because I would tell everyone, what 3 values are you choosing for this season? Hard work was a very common one. And what I realized about the hard work value in the home was that it made everyone responsible for their work. I don't remember, and I know my kids are going to watch this video at some point. I don't remember reminding or being frustrated about someone's homework in our home, or where I was frustrated that you haven't done your homework. What are they going to say in school? This. I don't remember that. I actually do not remember that. Everyone was serious about their work because hard work was part of our values. I used to even me and my daughter. I used to laugh at not laugh at her, but laugh with her because I remember during her GCSEs, and she's a big K drama fan. I mean, one of her friends introduced it to her, but she even surpassed her friend in the number of K drama movies she watches. And I remember during her GCSEs, her exams, she would be watching K dramas. I was like, Tamara, don't you have exams tomorrow? Oh yeah, I've studied. Yeah, I'm still gonna go back and study. I just used to just say, okay, no problem. I trust you. I trust you. And of course, she really was good with timing herself. So she would plan the day, maybe do some studies very late at night, and then so that later on, after she's come back from school, she can have time to watch K drama. But you can imagine another parent seeing that you have an exam the next day and that day before you are watching K drama. I mean, some parents may not be able to handle that, but I just had to trust the process because I knew her, and I think because I believed so much in the values that we've talked about, so that helped a lot, and she did very well in her GCSEs, and so it again, it's this what I've just shared now validates what I'm trying to talk about introducing to our children values, talking about what do these values look like, how are you implementing these values. Of course, some days they're not going to, some days they're going to relax, some days they're not, but in overall they have those values in their mind. And values actually, and this is what I tell young people that I mentor, values actually guides your decisions, it guides your choices. It's like I tell them, it's like a roadmap. When you choose that value, that's what you go by. It's that's the value that determines the choices you make. And this is what I encourage parents to bring into the home about these values. Values stand more than rules. Again, remember, I'm not saying do not have rules. I'm just saying prioritize values, because it's values that determines the choices our children make. So there was teamwork, there was hard work. Another value that was very prominent in our home was resilience. And again, this is me looking back to say, wow, this value of resilience that all of us kept talking about really, really helped my children along the journey. Because can I tell you, my children went through setbacks in different forms. Setbacks, school, injury, sports injury. My daughter with auditions, she would get to one stage, they say, oh, sorry, there were so many disappointments. There were so many setbacks. But that value of resilience that we always talked about made them that it was, I don't want to use the word easier, but it gave them the capability to rise up again. It gave them the capability to bounce back from those setbacks. I remember Kenny, just before his A levels, he got injured. He had surgery. I remember I had to take him to school with his crutches, and yet still excelled in his exams. The value of resilience, the value of having values. Values actually help us as parents. So resilience was there, respect was there, respect for each other and respect for themselves. We talked about that as well at certain points. But when it was time, as they were getting older, because what happened when they were younger, we would choose values as, actually, I'm just trying to say, did I choose the values for them? I think when they were much younger, yes, I talked about teamwork, I talked about hard work, those kind of things. I introduced those values. But as they got older, I started asking them about what values are they choosing for the year. And 9 out of 10 times, the value of hard work, resilience continued through the year. Even in last year, as we talked about values and our goals, hard work, resilience was still playing a part. Still playing a part. So this is what I mean by the values grows with them. It evolves as they grow. The beautiful thing about values is the fact that it helps them with their decisions and their choices. And this is why I encourage parents, bring in values. Let's talk about what values do we have as a home, so that it then lessens all those frictions and those times of you didn't do the show, you didn't read your book, you got to go and read, go and do your assignment. There's a lot of back and forth things that we can avoid when the concept of values is embedded in our children. And so I'm going to do a series on this because the concept of values is such a wide concept, but I want to do it in series. I'm going to have like some series here on YouTube so that we can, and I'm going to break it down to see the value of values. I think that's a word, see the value of values. and how we can teach our children values age by age cohorts 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 10 to 30. I'm going to break it down like that. This section or this episode is more of an introduction to the value of values, the power of having values in our homes. And I tell you something, and I'm in the notes as well. I will break a lot of it down. Um, it really does help because then you get into less situations where there's friction, there's conflicts, there's disconnection, because we're talking values. And a child who is raised with values is a child who is responsible. They're responsible, they're confident, they're they're audacious. Just so many benefits of having values. When I talk to young people out there and I ask them, what values do you have? A lot of times they struggle because that's not a normal language. That's not a common, that's not the norm in their homes. But let's change that narrative. Let's start making values the norm. And the values conversation will help your rules conversation. So I'm not telling you to take away the rules. I did, because that's what I just didn't. I felt that the values did more work for me than the rules. But it's okay for you to still keep the rules, but bring in the conversation of values, because values will help the rules stick. Values will help your children understand the why behind the rules. They won't see it as, oh, this everything, every time we have to do this, every time we have to do this. They would see the value of the value for their lives. They know that that hard work we're talking about as a child is going to help them through to get to the vision of their lives. Again, vision has to be spoken about as well. And that is key because even reflecting back, I found out that because we spoke a lot about the future, about what they want to achieve, what they want to do, where they see themselves, because we spoke a lot about that, the values conversation was easy to do as well because the value is what is going to lead you to that vision that you have. So, parents, the conversation of values and vision is so vital in our homes, irrespective of how young your children are. Because as young as they are, you already see the talents and the gifts they have. If you haven't, then please do the honors of observing your children. With that vision, then we're then encouraging them. Hard work, it will lead you to the vision. I remember my son as well, his school was quite far. And so in the mornings, he would get ready, go to school. Sometimes we'll talk and say, well, my school is far, this. I said, you know what? The consistency of going to school, that your consistency that you're building of going to school, it's not just about school, it's about your life in the future. It will be easy for you to be consistent in doing things when you grow up because you've practiced this consistency going to school. And it's true, it worked. I remember recently we spoke about it and he reflected back at his secondary school days. And he connected the dots to how that his consistency, waking up early, going to school, coming back, all that stuff that he did, he's seeing the fruits of it now in his workplace, in the way he works and his commitment and his consistency. So it all connects. But we've got to bring the language of vision back into our homes. Bring the language of values that connects our children to the vision. And you will see that you would have less behavioral problems, less conflicts, less arguments. You will have more committed children and you will be more relaxed in your parenting. When I say relaxed in your parenting, not as stressed in your parenting. So, one of the biggest things I want parents to realize and to know is that if we don't intentionally teach our children values at home, our children will learn values somewhere else. They will learn it from social media, from the internet, from peers, from influencers, from friendship groups, from the internet. Children are always learning what matters. The question is, who is teaching them? I just want that to land for many of us. They are still going to learn values somewhere else. And unfortunately, many of the behaviors that we see across society today with young people I look beyond behavior to see a gap in values. A gap in values. These children are not being raised with values. Because if they're being raised with values, the values, as I said, will guide their choices. And many of them are not making the right choices. But that stems from a lack of meaningful values. Because if we're not teaching them values, then they're learning the values of the streets. They're learning the values out there that will not or do not even correlate to the values that you believe in. And so this is why it's important to bring in these conversations about values, how, and actually teach our children how to implement these values, how to show up with these values. I used to ask them, what did you do today to show that you are hardworking? What did you do today to show that you're resilient? So that's how you break it down. And when I talk to young people that I mentor as well, and we talk about values, that's what I bring to the table for them. Is that, okay, you've chosen these values. How are you going to show up next week with those values? Or how are you going to show up this coming month with those values? So that we make values a reality. We make values practical, not just theory. And so that they can see how their behaviors connect to the values. That's really key, because children want to understand what does this mean to them. It's not just theory of, oh, you have to respect. What does it look like? And this is our job as parents, to explain to them what it looks like. And then as they get older, they will be the ones telling us, okay, I read that to be this, you've got to be this. So you let them go and explore what those values are. And then they can bring them to the table. So, values are internal. They will help our children. I've said it here, they will help our children make the decisions when we're not there, because we're not going to be there 24/7. I don't know if I've said that somewhere in the video, but we're not going to be there 24/7. It's the values that will help. It's the values that will stand in for us when we're not there for our children. So I trust that this has helped. Let me know in the comment section what you think and what has resonated with you in this video. And as I said, I'm going to there's more in this video, there's more in this topic that I'm going to share. So I've broken it into a series. So this is more of the introduction. I'm going to show us how we can teach values to our children in the different age cohorts, 0 to 5, 6 to 10, and all that. It's going to be part of the series. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do me the honors and press that subscription button somewhere out there. Press the subscription button, subscribe, so that you don't miss out on any of these videos. I tell you, when I'm speaking about values, I'm speaking from lived experience, and it has worked. And I do not want to just hoard that template. That's why I want to share that template with you, your friends, your family. So share this video. Let everyone subscribe to this channel, so that you don't miss out on this topic and other topics that I'm going to be sharing. So I trust that this has helped. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking it. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the series on this topic, because this topic means a lot to me. It means a whole lot to me. I'm looking forward to it. So until I see you next week, you take care. God bless you. And remember, please don't forget this, that I'm rooting for you all the way. You take care. God bless. And I will see you soon. See you later.